and welcome to Pique My Interest, a podcast dedicated to creativity. My name is Scoob Decker, and I am an artist, and your host. PMI is an exploration in meeting some incredible artists, learning about their craft, and exploring what makes them create. This week, I was honored to sit down with an artist I followed a bit before PMI even existed. Josh Hernandez is an unbelievable charcoal artist who also goes by the name Mad Charcoal. He is a Phoenix-based artist who grew up in the LA area and was inspired by his upbringing to dabble into a fairly rare craft. With the push of his wife during COVID, they wanted to showcase his skills. They recorded some videos of him drawing, and quickly everyone saw his talent, and soon the world-class artist Mad Charcoal was born. With the struggles of understanding how to create an art business during a tough time, soon with the hard work and passion, there was an immense demand for his work for a pretty penny. He is a fully self-sustained artist and has the skills to blow you away. He doesn't like to be connected to social media too much, as he thinks it's a distraction from the beautiful things in his life, even though he appreciates what it has done for his career. He says the most difficult thing in life is to find out what you are supposed to be doing, and says he is always on the quest to find his, and it has helped his spiritual journey balancing Mad Charcoal with being the best family man he can be. He says his work is a window to what's underneath. This episode was recorded on August 26th in Phoenix, Arizona. I hope you look up their work and your interest is piqued. I hope you're having a grand day, and please enjoy this week's episode I've titled, Charcoal is Evil. Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest. I am currently in Phoenix, Arizona, sitting in this beautiful home and kind of studio as well with this incredible artist. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Scoob.
Absolutely. You do anything interesting lately?
Lately? Yeah, I've been all over the place. I've traveled this month more than I feel like I've traveled my whole life, so kind of trying to gather myself, but yeah.
Doing that plane travel that we talked about?
Yeah,
Love it so much.
Oh yeah, I love flying. Not.
And please, pique our interest. Introduce yourself. What is your name and where are you from?
My name is Josh Hernandez. Some people know me as Mad Charcoal. I respond to either, I think. People don't really call me Mad Charcoal. But anyway, so yeah, I just go by Josh. I am originally from Los Angeles, California. That's where I was born and raised. I was born in Orange County, lived in Los Angeles, not in the city, but like a suburb. And we moved to Phoenix, I think it's 2007, I was like 11 or 12. And since then I've been here. So I've lived longer here in Phoenix than I have in California. So this is my home now. I really like it here. So I'd say I'm from Phoenix, Arizona.
And tell us, what is your craft?
My craft is... for trade is drawing and painting. I do a lot of other things, but I am known most for charcoal drawing, if you could call it that, because it's a mixture of all other materials as well, but it just appears to be charcoal drawing. I use a mixture of black pastel, ink sometimes, and definitely lots of different types of charcoal. And sometimes graphite, but rarely, and it all just looks like charcoal drawing. I just simplify it down to what's called charcoal drawing.
Yeah, this is the first guest artist that I've had on that I've actually followed before Pique My Interest even existed. So this is,
really?
Yes, I'm kind of fanboying over here. So this is just really cool.
That's awesome. I'm honored.
To me, charcoal work is just very unique. There's just not too much of it in the world. Mm-hmm. So I think it in itself stands out upon other fine artists. Mm-hmm. What makes your work different than other people who might dabble in charcoal?
I didn't think that my work was much different than others before, until I really started enjoying myself with the way I approached the piece and being expressive with the piece. So I really didn't approach it in a way that I wanted to be set apart. I just wanted to get better at drawing effectively. And so over the years, I learned to get better at the work, and naturally over time, once I got more comfortable with charcoal drawing, I started to develop this expression and chaos to the piece that I just had fun with. It had nothing to do with me showing anybody, or it had nothing to do with me getting a degree, passing a course, trying to develop a certain style. It just naturally came about because I enjoyed it so much. And it's still kind of transforming itself day by day, and I'm going in different directions, revisiting other old directions. But I didn't try to set myself apart in my style. It just kind of naturally happened. The more I enjoyed it, the more I liked it. And the better I got, I'm still learning a ton of...
Constantly learning.
Just constantly trying to get better.
I just can't talk about how unique and cool I personally think it is. The strokes that you have to create stories within your faces, within your pieces, I just think it's gorgeous. You have different techniques. You have removing of tape. You add different pieces. You have different colors, and I just think it's beautiful. And I just want to say thank you for that. Do you have any background in charcoal and or fine art? What is your education in art?
Good question. I don't really have a background in art. I grew up drawing and being very supported by both my parents and desiring creative freedom, especially in drawing. My mom is really creative. She does a lot of things. So she grew up in Mexico, and she would take apart old rag clothing and create dolls out of it and make them for her friends, sell them for a little bit of food money and things like that. She's always had that creative drive, but she wasn't a fine artist because she didn't come from an opportunity to be able to even do that. So I think that I might have kind of come from that in a sense, and she was very supportive in that. So I'd always be the kid in the back of the class drawing and not paying attention to the actual lesson. And I hadn't really tried charcoal all that much as a kid. I used to just draw with pencils and pens, like the normal stuff you could just find at a school. And when I did try charcoal once, and I thought it was going to be the coolest thing, I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I tried drawing with charcoal the same way you draw with a pen or with graphite pencil. It did not go well. And I was really frustrated because I didn't know the right technique, and I hated charcoal after that. I thought it was evil. So I was like, charcoal, that's not a cool thing. That's not something to like at all. So I actually didn't like charcoal. Up until late high school, I started to do some of these life drawing courses and life drawing classes in open studios where you draw people that are in the center of the studio and surrounded by artists. Sometimes they're nude, sometimes they have costumes on. And it's not as weird as it sounds, actually. But it was a lot of fun. And we were, I don't want to say forced, but we were, it was recommended to us to use charcoal because of the speed of which you need to draw when models are holding poses. And I gave it a chance, really enjoyed it, started to learn a little bit more about how to use the material. And the teacher was really affirming in my ability to draw, and ever since then I've really leaned on charcoal to draw the most. Painted a lot too, and did some digital design a lot too, but I actually went to school for graphic design. I did not go to school for fine art. I didn't think that you could make a living off fine art realistically. I thought it was just something that some people get to do randomly if they really wanted to, and I was like, I like to draw, but I want to make money, so I'm going to be a graphic designer, art director. I went to school for that. Loved it. It's great. It's just very corporate. It wasn't the most creative career, so I still drew on the side eventually when my wife kind of convinced me to share some artwork during COVID because we were that bored. But I found some creative freedom in design and thought that was going to be my career for the rest of my life, and I enjoyed it.
You're answering all my questions right now.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Talking a little bit about your upbringing with your mom helping out and showing you kind of how to work with what you got. And your upbringing in LA, I'm sure being surrounded by art and just being around it inspired you to just continue to follow that. You also talked a little bit about Mad Charcoal being a little more of an aggressive approach to the charcoal. And I will say, watching your videos, you do live videos all the time, and you do attack that canvas and it's just fun to watch the speed that you do it and the passion that you have, and you even talk through it sometimes. And that's just really fun to hear your process and why you're creating the things and how you're creating the brush strokes and whatnot. So that's just really cool.
Thank you.
I would say that you're pretty successful. You are selling these pieces for a pretty penny. Do you consider yourself successful? What is success in your craft? What really got you succeeding in your craft?
Good question. Successful. Definition of successful. I would say that in my craft, in my career, I would say I am successful because, I mean, we're able to sustain ourselves. My family and I are able to enjoy a lot of things freely, like traveling if we want to. We own a home. We're comfortable financially, so that's a blessing in itself. That's something that I never thought artwork could carry for me, but it does, and it wasn't something that I pushed for, so I know that it's not something that I necessarily deserve, but I get to enjoy that. And so successful in that sense, sure. I don't think that that's my definition of the most successful thing that we can have, right? I think that there's so much more value in other things. I think it's just a tool and a way to be able to have a roof over our heads. So I do have a cool following online that is nice. I don't really spend time on social media at all. I have a light phone, if you've seen that. So I don't have the passcode to any of my devices. So I don't really get to interact all that much with people. Every now and then I'll go on live or something like that. But I am told of when people are like, have questions or are praising my work sometimes by my manager or my wife. They're kind of looking through those things, and I do see the support, but I don't really spend all that time browsing because I don't really find it that valuable for me. So yeah, I think success has to do with whether you're in line with what you were called to do or with what the gifts you were given. Yeah, to me it's a faith thing. It's like a big part of what I do is my beliefs, and I'm a Christian guy, and so I think that we're all called to something, and it's a really hard thing. It's probably the most meaningful thing in life. That's why it's probably the most difficult thing to figure out what it is we're supposed to be doing, and to honor that and to pursue that. It's probably going to be the most difficult thing that we can actually pursue, and I do think that I found that, and so the better I get at this, the more effective I am in my spiritual life and in supporting my family and supporting my friends, the people around me, the more successful I think I am in that. I don't think that, first of all, I don't think that strength or that ability comes from me at all. I think I'm just receiving it from God. But I do think that the more I'm willing to just kind of open up my hands to that, the more successful I am in that. Not because I actually did it,
Yeah.
Like I'm not like grind mentality, like success is in your hands if you really want it. I do think we have a big responsibility in not being lazy, being disciplined and things like that, but I don't think it's ultimately from us if we do see that success.
Well, let's dive into this grind a little bit, the drive. You mentioned Jordan a little bit, your wife. I didn't quite realize that Mad Charcoal was created through COVID. It was kind of a necessity, if you will, or maybe the only thing that you could do.
Yeah.
How did Mad Charcoal come to be?
Okay, so I was just finishing up school. We had just gotten married. It was December 2019. And we had this tiny little studio apartment. So in this tiny little studio apartment, Jordan and I, married for a couple months, we're not planning to spend that much time in there. We were both reffing soccer to kind of make ends meet, and then I was entering my design career, seeking to be an art director. I was in the music industry a little bit doing that, the visual end of things. I was exploring different corporate freelance jobs with design, and so we were pretty busy, and we were not spending that much time in the studio space, or in our studio apartment I should say, That's why we wanted to save some cash and be in a little space, and we didn't need to have rooms or anything. We just had a closet and a restroom and a kitchen and then just a bed. But then COVID hit. It was March, right? Only a couple months after that. And we were stuck inside, and we did not know what to do because we were learning this whole marriage thing. We all of a sudden we had no work actively happening. We were okay financially, but just to make ends meet. But we didn't know what to do, and we didn't have enough space for each other, I guess, in a sense. And so naturally things got pretty intense in there, right? We were at each other's throat a couple times, and I feel like we grew in our marriage almost as if we had a few years of marriage under our belt after that, really fast. The thing is, it ended up being good. It ended up being a good thing because we worked through it, and I would say God sustained us through it, but it could have easily not been good. And so with that, towards the end of COVID, actually, it wasn't even that early in COVID, we had downloaded TikTok. Very wise of us. But so we would scroll and we'd really enjoy the videos. We thought it was so much fun. And we didn't really have social media at the time. We were just browsed, I guess. And Jordan would see these artists create something on TikTok or on Instagram Reels or something like that. And she'd be like, hey, they have a lot of attention. You could do that. You should upload your artwork. And at this time, it's been a couple of years since I've drawn it all because I was just focused on design work, just graphics, illustrations, logos, all that, the computer stuff. And I was not into that. I was like, no thanks. I'm not going to draw anymore. That's my past life, It's just for fun. I'll pick up the hobby again sometime.
You need a real world job.
Yeah, I need a big boy job, right? And then and eventually she bothered me enough that I did it. It took a couple months, but I did it. I sat across from her in our own little it was an inside studio date.
Of course.
Yeah, I think we had a date once. We ate some Taco Bell. It was in
COVID dates.
Yeah, COVID date. We lit a candle and all. Anyway, I sat across from her and I drew her and I recorded the process with my left hand while I drew with my right hand, and I leaned it on the table and I showed her face, showed the drawing, and it kind of went back and forth. And honestly, it was not a great drawing, but it was kind of where my ability was at the time, and uploaded that pretty much. I just chopped it up, put a song over it, uploaded it, and immediately it got thousands of views. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. And then 10,000s of views, and then hundreds of thousands of views. And this is within an hour. And then it hit millions. And I was like, this is crazy. This is I've never seen something like this before. And that was the first video I've ever uploaded of my artwork. I've had uploaded a little bit of pictures here and there on Instagram for my friends, but nothing besides that. I thought it was a fluke. Jordan was like, whoa, that's actually kind of cool. And I was like, yeah, let me try it again. It's probably just, lucky. And the next one did really well, and it just blew up. And I was like, that's real cool too. So I kept doing it, and it was really fun, and it just kept blowing up, and it just kept doing really well. Some better than others, but consistently really good. And naturally, followers went up. I made an Instagram account to show the actual finished pieces because people wanted to see the finished pieces. And we got a lot of demand and people asking to buy the pieces. And so we started to sell them through Instagram DMs. Hey, you like this drawing? $80. Sure, you can have it. We'll figure out how to ship it to you because I've never shipped a drawing in my life. You know what I mean? It was chaos, but it was so much fun. And it started to grow, and we grew this following on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And naturally, the demand for the work grew as well. Eventually, we created a website so you could check out a shop, and that cost us a lot of money, and try to do it professionally, and a lot of work, and we didn't know if it was going to work, but we tried it anyway. And my wife was still reffing at the time, and doing other work, so because she didn't quite trust, and I didn't quite trust that we can actually put our dependency on this job, on this business of me making art. We didn't think it was realistic. We thought it was just maybe for a moment, or it would just stay small like this. So She actually ended up tearing her ACL when we were playing soccer once. Yeah, some co-ed soccer. She's a tennis player, so of course that would happen. But anyway, and when she tore her ACL, I was like, you know what? Maybe this is like a sign that you're supposed to put some time into the business and manage it a little bit. I know you're really good at that. She has a degree in that, why not? And so when she did put her time and energy into the business, it like flourished. It grew so fast and way more effective in managing the whole thing, since I didn't have to keep track of everything. And it naturally turned into like our entire business, and we were making a lot more without doing as much like working in the other things. We'd compare it to soccer games. So our reffing games, we would get like for a really short indoor soccer game, like less than an hour long, we'd get like $20 cash each, and we're both on the same field. We'd ref together. So then if we'd sell like a drawing for like $100, we'd be like, that's like 5 games that we reffed together. That's crazy. And I drew that in 15 minutes. And our minds were blown, right? And we still have people like reach out sometimes. They're like, oh, I bought some of your art and it was like this much money. I was so excited. And now look at this, because it's like, I don't know, 20 times more expensive. But anyway, so she torn her ACL. We kind of refocused back on the business that way. And she was also kind of laying there. So I was like, hey, you know what? Well, we were both talking about it. We're like, you're going to be sitting here doing nothing for a little while besides working in the business, like on a laptop. How about we just like have a baby too? So we we said, how about let's not be careful? And then like immediately that was Joa.
There it is.
No, Joa was almost 2.5. And so we ended up having a baby too. And then like at the end of that COVID year, like 2020, or a little bit later, 2021, I think it was, we outgrew the studio, and the entire like apartment, we even moved to a 2-bedroom apartment. The entire thing was just a business. We had boxes everywhere. My easel was up. There was charcoal over the ground. The entire place, boxes on boxes of tubes and paper and canvases and sticky notes everywhere. It was crazy. We were just trying to keep it together. People would come over and we just have to push everything over just so we could sit down a little bit. We'd even use our bed to lay out drawings, and because they were pretty big drawings. So then we ended up buying a house that had a studio space in it, a garage conversion to kind of absorb that and be able to host people still and hang out with others without having to, sit underneath packaging boxes. Yeah.
Is that where we are now?
Yeah, that's where we are now.
Now?
And now like we're even outgrowing this, and we're looking at what steps to take next, and luckily we're comfortable enough that we don't have to rush that. Mm-hmm. Getting a studio space probably very soon, like a warehouse or something like that. And
warehouse.
Yeah, which would be really cool, I think. Like something really crappy and industrial. I don't want something nice. I really, really want something that like you walk in and you're like, I wonder if I'm going to the right spot. Something like that.
God, if you're going to visit Mad Charcoal, it's gotta be dangerous.
Yeah, I wanted to be dangerous, man. Yeah.
So you've been through the grind. You've done the struggle. Mm-hmm. You've had the benefit of working with your wife Jordan, who worked as a manager a bit. You decided to have some kids. You're a family man. Mm-hmm. You've brought on Julia. Shout out to Julia.
Shout out Julia. She's the best.
Your manager, your CEO, your boss man, keeping the whole thing going.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the art. Mm-hmm. Tell us, how do you start your creation process? What's your first steps when creating a piece?
It does depend on which piece I'm making or what I need more so. Sometimes I don't have that many paintings, so I'll do a painting. Sometimes I have. There's a lot of drawings in demand that I don't have many of. So I do kind of premeditate that. A lot of people are like, do you even know what you're going to make? Because it looks like you just throw charcoal on a paper and then make something out of it. Well, I kind of do that, but I do have an idea of what I'm going to make. It's not as spontaneous and chaotic as it looks. It's actually quite premeditated, quite organized. And the only thing unorganized about it is a little bit of the chaos in the material. I do have an idea of what style I'm going to try, like if it's like the pixelated squares kind of coming off the face like that painting there, or like the mist or smoke or the flames coming out like that painting there, or just the chaotic, normal pieces like that or like this. I know they can't see, but but I think they could kind of get an idea of what I mean. And so I do think of that beforehand, and the pieces change as I work through them naturally, and I'll push them in different directions. but the overall idea is pretty much there before I even, touch charcoal to the paper. And so, yeah.
Yeah. That's my big question, is that initial throwing of the charcoal or the paint on it. As an audience member, you go, oh my gosh, who knows what's going, and then you just start going and you just start adding these swirls and these twirls and these textures, and then, wait a minute, that's a face. Oh my god, oh, it's beautiful, oh, it's gorgeous. So I just want to know, while you're going, how much can be adapted. And you say that you have an idea of what it wants to look like, but does the charcoal kind of speak to you as you're making it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, some of the pieces, all of the pieces really take a different turn during the creative process that I didn't really anticipate, or I just kind of allowed to kind of develop organically. And I push it towards that, what seems to be like this piece would have a strength in this area and I'm just seeing it on the page as I go. That does happen in every single piece, I would say, and without fail. I mean, the pieces could still be failed. They could still be bad pieces at the end, but they do have their own like direction. So but the overall big idea of the piece is usually kind of set in stone, but the rest, everything between there, is all over the place.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense? So is that piece going to still be like a 90-year-old man with white hair and a beard? Yeah, but I don't exactly know what that is going to look like in the end. I just know that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So something that general. I do pull up a lot of references of different people. Sometimes photographers send me some references to use, and I try to make sure if I do use those that I give them credit for that. I do develop sometimes my own AI references. So I'll do like maybe like a Vogue style photo shoot with like a close-up portrait in black and white or something like that, because I really like those styles. It kind of gives it an elegant contrast to the chaos of the piece. Yeah. So I'll like make those, and I'll see which ones I could pull from while I'm drawing. I do like regurgitate a lot of other art and a lot of other photos, and like, it's not just, people think that I'm just making this come out of my head, like, which part of it is, but it's definitely a regurgitation of a lot of different art forms, different people, different ideas.
Yeah, you do have a lot of different series. You have a Western series. You have a lot of Jesus in there. You have a lot of women that you paint, and you say that those are your biggest sellers.
Yeah, they are the biggest sellers, yeah.
I also want to talk about your tape pieces. How did that come to be?
If I remember correctly, I think that I wanted to come up with a concept that retained some of the initial chaotic sketch, the high contrast, very abstract, very undetailed, and like brushstrokey sketch that's underneath every single drawing, every single piece I make. I was thinking, how can I retain some of that, still develop the piece completely, and expose it at the end? And I was like, maybe some tape. I had to find the right kind of tape that doesn't tear the paper every single time, and like the right size and all that. Right. And it's still like a little bit of a chaotic way of where I put the tape and stuff. It's more like just a feel for it. It's not necessarily a system, but I do try to go with like either like 5 or 7 pieces of tape every time, because I don't like the even numbers. I think that's kind of weird. I think like there's a little more movement in the odd numbers for some reason. And I like 7. The number 7's cool, so I usually do 7 pieces of tape. People don't really notice that, but yeah. And so I was thinking, how can I kind of protect some of that sketch, that underlying initial sketch at the beginning? And so I'll chaotically and expressively sketch very quickly, like I'm talking like 30 seconds, 40 seconds for that underlying sketch, tape it up in the places that I want to keep, at the places in the sketch that I think are most interesting, that I want to be exposed at the end. And then I'll finish the drawing with that tape on it as best I can, and really push that to be a little bit more realistic, a little bit more like realism to that, right? And not necessarily completely real, but it's going to be a lot more developed. That way, when I do pull that tape off, it's like it's like a window to the core of someone, to the past, it's a window to what's underneath, which you might not see in reality. Maybe sometimes what people hide. It depends on the story behind the piece. And I do try to stay vague with that because I want people to interact with the piece. I don't want to tell them exactly what's happening, even though there might be something exactly happening. I don't want that to be completely decided by me for the viewer. I want them to have a role.
Interpretation.
Yeah, I want them to play a role in the
Yeah.
piece, and that's why I think that causes a little bit of interaction between the viewer and the artist. And I think it gives them enough information to kind of anchor themselves in the piece. Because that's the thing with abstract art that I'm not quite fond of. I do like abstract art a lot, but sometimes there's no anchor of what somebody might understand. Like there's nothing you can kind of relate to in your own real experience. You have to apply meaning to every single part of the piece. I want to kind of challenge that. I want to create something where somebody can see, oh, that's a mouth and a nose and hair. I know that. That's like, I experience that every day. Now, there's also expressive elements to that. There's abstract elements to that. And now that brings the feeling, the emotion, the human experience in. That's surpasses real life. It surpasses physical life, right? Mm-hmm. And it's almost like the soul involved with the body. You can't really see the soul, but you can see the body. How can I anchor somebody to be able to recognize the body and then feel the soul in the same piece? Yeah. And that's something that I'm striving for. That's something that I'm always lacking in, I think, and I think it's going to be something I'm chasing probably my entire life without actually getting to. But I get a little closer, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to let you know that I think that your pieces tell a story. I have a connection when I look at them. Mm-hmm. It's to be able to have that open to interpretation, for me to be able to look at it, have a feeling, get the story, but also be able to incorporate my own vision into it. It's really powerful. I think your work does that really well.
Thank you. Yeah.
And while you're creating, what gets your creative juices flowing? What inspires you?
Coffee. Okay. So, yeah, no, we're big on espresso. We got our own Breville and stuff, and get our custom beans sometimes. We did like a Mad Charcoal collab with like a charcoal style roast of coffee once. It was super fun. I want to get back into that with a little place called Driftwood here in Arizona. But so, yeah, and honestly, a lot of caffeine. I'm just kidding. But I think inspiration comes from the human experience for me. I think that I don't receive inspiration much different than anybody does for whatever they do and whatever inspires them. I think that the way that we channel that inspiration and utilize it in our life is different, right? Like with you, I mean, you're an actor, right? And I'm assuming you could sing well and like the music side of things as well. And so you might receive what I experience as well. It just influences you to move in a certain direction that is natural to you. My natural direction is through the visual arts, right? And the things that I know best and I kind of grew up doing, which is drawing and painting. But I think that there's not a specific one thing that inspires me that's separate from everything else, you know? Like naturally as a person, I think our spiritual life, whether we like it or not, is what dictates the rest of our life. So you can say like, oh, like my spiritual life is what's most inspiring. Well, you can say that, but your spiritual life is also what engulfs the rest of your life. It's like the core of who you are, the values of who you are, if you don't want to call it spirituality or something like that. So that is what inspires me and everything in that, which is definitely like my wife, my kids, like the books I read, you know, even like movies. I love movies, right? I love storylines. I love people's stories and lives and testimonies and experiences, and the human condition in general is so inspiring to me that it moves me to try to create something to sometimes to honor that, or sometimes to just to get across what it is I'm experiencing in that. But I do want the people to be able to see the work and see a story in it, like you were saying, and it might not be the same. I've noticed that sometimes I'm creating a piece and I'm thinking of that story of that piece or of that idea that I'm communicating is more chaotic and almost like coming apart. and I'll come back to that piece the next day in a different mood, in a different space, in a different headspace, and it'll be like the piece to me now it's come together. You know, it's like the opposite of what it was before. I think that having that dynamic element in the piece is cool, because it'll be different for me, the creator of the piece, every time I go up to it, you know? It's not always the same thing.
Do you ever watch a movie or listen to music while you're working?
Oh, yeah. I can't really watch a movie all that much because the dialogue distracts me. And I really like to pay attention to that. So when I'm working, I listen to a lot of that music that you'll probably find when watching the creative process of the videos. So sometimes the name of the piece might be inspired by that like composer or that story or that movie that the film score is from, something along those lines, because I find a lot of like emotional inspiration in some cinematic film soundtracks, or I like that atmospheric and like contemporary classical style music, because they're like timeless instruments. There's usually not very much dialogue or singing in them that has like too lyrical, right? Because I like lyrical music when I'm not making art. I like non-lyrical music when I'm making art, so that you can speak through a different way, you know? A little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like poems without words.
Do you have any other hobbies? You talked about being a soccer ref.
Yeah, that was just a good way to get through school and still make some money at night. I played soccer competitively through college. Played at some higher levels than a lot of people, so that was really fun to experience. I was not naturally talented in that way at all. I had to work harder than most people to kind of get to that level, because so I kind of leaned on my athleticism in that, like speed and stuff like that, and wasn't very natural in touching the ball. So now that I'm not like as athletic as I used to be, I still play soccer a lot, but I'm just like way worse. And but I really enjoy soccer. I still play 2-3 times a week with my friends and try to stay fit that way.
Do you follow it professionally?
Yes and no. Like I'll watch some of the highlights on YouTube, but I just don't have the time to watch full games. You know?
You got some kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
And
I'm sure...
I do like watching it a lot, but I think that I need to prioritize. I've found lately, like time-wise, we're limited, right? So we need to prioritize the way we use our time with what we value most. And sadly, that doesn't make the cut. There's a lot of good things out there that didn't make the cut for me, you know, like that. Like social media could be good sometimes, could find enjoyable, didn't make the cut. And even sometimes movies, except for on occasion. Yeah.
Finding what's important to you.
Exactly. So yeah, I play a lot of soccer.
While creating, we all run into a brick wall, not sure what to do next. We tried this stroke and it didn't work. How do you overcome a creative block?
Good question. That's actually, I've made some videos on that too, because I used to struggle with creative block, but I struggled with creative block when I was drawing only when I was inspired. So the difference I think between a lot of professional artists and a lot of amateur artists is when they work. In order to make a career out of a creative field, and I think you might be able to back me in this potentially, is when you pursue that skill even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, even when you don't see the profits happening, even when you're not as inspired as other times, and you're still going after it and you're still sharpening yourself in that way, you're still seeking if you can accomplish something in that, then comes a lot of that fruit that you normally would not have seen if you were just doing something when you felt like it, when you were inspired. I also see that if you're not inspired and you still go ahead and go forth with the craft, like for me it'd be drawing. I don't feel like drawing right now. I'm not inspired right now, and I start to draw and I start to listen to that classical music, or I start listening to podcasts or something like that. I get inspired. 9.5 times out of 10, I get inspired. You know, after I don't wait for the inspiration first, because that means that I'm going to draw once or twice a month, maybe, because I've got so many things going on. I can't lean on that inspiration for that. And I think we have a responsibility to seek what it is that's put forth in front of us, even when we don't feel like it. And for me, that's a huge thing for overcoming art block. Like, just make something, get the juices flowing.
Last time I was here last week, I witnessed your manager, Julia, in the middle of our conversation just go, oh, hey, don't forget, you got to do one more painting tonight. You got to do a drawing tomorrow. And you got to post something on here. Do you ever find that stressful to try and come up with something that quickly? Or is it that simple? Just turn on some classic music and just the Josh Mad Charcoal flow just begins.
Yeah, it's not that easy. But I do think that the challenge kind of makes space for something beautiful. But I think I've tackled it enough times to know that this is possible. I might be able to accomplish this when I have set my foot forth and go towards it. But there are times that I completely fail, and you have to kind of be okay with that, and you have to keep going, So yeah, it is a little bit stressful, but stress it's not a bad thing. It's only when you're overstressed or overtired that it's a bad thing, and that sometimes you have to reset, go for a walk and get a good night's sleep, eat some good food, hang out with some friends to kind of let that go. Yes, that's another side of art block, Like if that's in the way, sometimes you do need to step back and reset if you've been working a lot. I've noticed most of the times when people are talking about art block, though, they're just sitting around and haven't drawn for months, and they say they have art block. But that in that case, I'd say draw more. But if you're drawing too much, or if you've got like 3 different art projects in front of you and they're not working, sometimes you need to just step back a little bit and recollect yourself, and then try it again the next day, or try it again hours later. I think that I've been blessed enough to be able to tackle all of those tasks, all of those art projects and things in the same day and see some fruit out of that. So it does give me confidence in the ability to actually accomplish those things, and which I wouldn't have otherwise if I hadn't tried it before. And so it's a healthy, stressful environment in that way. There's like, oh, this is 4 pieces I have to get done today, and they're all this specific way, and I just finished the first one, and that was difficult, like it's yeah, just going towards it and starting it is like the hardest part.
And then being able to put faith in yourself to know that even though I might be forcing myself to do this, I trust myself to be able to tap into this creativity, to know that I'm going to be making a Mad Charcoal piece rather than a Josh without his morning coffee slapping together something real quick because Julia told him to.
Yeah, because Julia.
Again, shout out to Julia.
Shout out Julia. Shout out Colin too. He's back there actually packaging and shipping stuff right now too. I don't want to, he's due a lot of credit.
It's a team.
It's a team, yeah. It's all of us. There's been a lot of people that have helped us on this. Matt, he's our cinematographer. He does all our YouTube videos and the ideas for that and our courses, and he's so talented as well. So we have a whole team.
Speaking of bringing people on board, what would be your recommendation for somebody trying to get into charcoal? Would you say go to school, take some classes?
Good question. So this is a complicated one for me to answer because I think it depends on a lot of different variables in your life. It has to do with like how skilled are you at the moment, how established are you as an artist. What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? And how do you learn? Are you disciplined or undisciplined? So I'll just give you kind of my reasoning behind what I did based on what I was good at, what I was not good at, my strengths and weaknesses, and so on and so forth. So I'm a very naturally undisciplined person. I tend to do what I feel like doing in the moment, and so that creates grounds for me not finishing tasks. That creates grounds for me not fulfilling the tasks and not fulfilling the projects that I set out to do. But I knew that I had that weakness of discipline. And so I think school was pivotal for me. because it caused me to learn the things of which I would not naturally just learn on my own. You know, everything like in design school, everything in art school out there, you can learn online. You can learn it. You can pick up some books at the library and learn it all. It's all out there for free just to grab and do it. The difference between school and that is that school holds you accountable to that. I needed that accountability in my life. Otherwise, I would not have done it. And I needed to know that I'm investing money into this. I have other people I'm answering to for this. And that way, I'm actually going to get it done. If I knew that I didn't have to go to school, but if I didn't, I wouldn't have done it on my own. I would have went out and hung out with my friends. I would have played soccer till 2 o'clock in the morning in the park. You know, like I would not have reached my potential in that way. So design school was really good for me because it taught me a lot of the things, not only that I wouldn't have learned on my own because I didn't have the discipline for, but it also taught me things, which is kind of the other end of what my answer is to this, that I went to design school and that helped me for art more than art school would have. The reason is because if you're interested in art, like let's say you're interested in acting, sometimes you'd benefit more by learning the things that you need to know that are not about acting. Like how to market yourself, how to brand yourself, how to, record a podcast. Like these are the things that you don't want to learn how to do, but they're so necessary in your success as an actor. Because you know why? You're passionate about acting. You're going to learn it on your own. You're gonna master that in your own passion, right? So now you have to have people hold you accountable to learn the things that you're not passionate about that go in line with that. So design was great for that because I could draw. As a kid, I could draw. Like I can effectively draw, and I didn't have to go to school just to learn to draw even better than I could draw already. That would have just made me a better artist with no money. You know what I mean? Like instead I went to design school by accident, but it caused me to learn how to market myself. It caused me to learn how to develop a website effective enough to draw people into the work. It caused me to know how to present my work. It caused me to know how to limit myself in what I'm doing to be able to be better at those things and to create like a brand identity, a brand language, something to be recognized about, how to make something appealing in that way, Like these things I would never have learned if I didn't go to design school. So I thought that was infinitely more useful than just going to a fine art school, which is really good, especially if you're not at the skill level you're supposed to be at. So yeah, I'd say if you want to draw really good, if you want to paint really good and you haven't quite mastered that and you're not holding yourself accountable to that, go to fine art school. If you're already good at art, like really good at art or good at what you want to do, see what complements that and learn it yourself. And if you're not doing that, if you're not disciplined, go to school for it.
Maybe a little business.
Yeah. Business. That's huge.
It's so funny that you talk about how a lot of education can be taken in free, whether that's the library, whether that's YouTube. But then a lot of the times people will spend money to go learn at a school about that art that they're already passionate about, to just learn about accountability and all that stuff. It's just...
Isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much out there that you can just... That's the thing. We take it for granted, right? There's so much out there. We take the internet for granted. And that's natural because it's just always there. So we could just say we're going to do it later, right? So if you need to learn business, which I do, and I actually hired somebody to do that for me because even if I did learn, I'm not as good at it as the other people are. And so just recognizing that and making yourself learn it is huge.
Well, I am very lucky right now. I'm sitting in your house surrounded by these gorgeous paintings, these charcoal pieces. It's time to clear the air. Is there any misconceptions about your craft?
Misconceptions. I think that I don't receive a lot of hate online. And I think I deserve more hate than I receive. I kind of like it. I like to be. I thrive in when I'm not in my comfort zone.
Okay.
And I think that I'm naturally like by my environment, by my followers, but like I really appreciate how supportive they are. I really appreciate how much people praise my work, but I really thrive when I'm challenged. So I really thrive when people are like have a problem with me. It was like why do you draw like that? That's wrong. Or that's not even a good face. Something's wrong with it. Like I'm like, oh, okay. Like let me figure this out. Let me see what I can do better. And if people are like, oh, that's an amazing painting, keep doing that, and they're buying it, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna make another one of those.
So you find criticism as a challenge?
Yeah, criticism is like the best, but obviously only criticism is gonna be very demoralizing. But
Sure.
but I really receive almost no hate. And so maybe I'm doing something wrong and I got to get a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more out of line. I don't know. You know what I mean? A little bit. Yeah. Because some people receive tons of criticism that I don't think should be. They don't deserve that. But yeah.
Like I said, I think your work is stunning, and I don't think there's too much to criticize. But
well, thank you. But there's always this like technicality and traditional aspect to my work that is lacking. I think that like sometimes proportions are off, and sometimes I went through that piece way too fast, and I could have done a much better job. Or like mixing the paints, that was like I mixed them in such a poor fashion that you can see it on the painting. I don't know, like things like that I could totally do better.
Aiming to be better.
Yeah.
And what's next for the world of your craft? You talked a little bit about AI helping you kind of get an idea of what you might want to make. Do you think
for
there's
references.
going to be any more technology in painting and or charcoal?
I think that's kind of what it's going to be. I don't see it doing much more than that, except for like ideas and stuff. What other?
I can tell you a computer can't create what you're making, though.
Kind of. It kind of can, but it's a little more robotic, and you can never get. That's the thing. I think I'm a little bit safe from AI. I know a lot of artists are very concerned with it, and I think it's just another tool arising. And yeah, a lot of people are going to be replaced by AI. Then they got to figure that out a little bit. But it's not necessarily AI that's doing the replacing. It's people using AI, right? Like so, if AI is going to replace your job, how can you use AI to do your job better? And then like you're going to be that one hired to actually use it because it's just a tool. Like a lawnmower could cut grass better than a scythe can or something like that, right? But that doesn't mean that it's going to take your job. That means that you just got to learn the lawnmower, right?
Learn how to work with it.
Yeah. So like times are always going to be changing. It's like when the internet happened, when phones happened, it's similar to that. I think it's a little bit more scary, but because it can make some things that look like were hand painted so well and even better than the artists themselves. I think there's been some times where people have done like AI renderings of artwork and they say like matte charcoal on there, and it'll actually come up in my style, and I'm like, that's really creepy because that's like my drawing but better sometimes, and so that's a little scary. But one thing that I know for sure is that, or pretty sure, is that the drawing process of how I work can't really be replaced by AI. So I can always have that, and I think that's what separates me from some artists. I'm not just posting my finished piece. I'm having the person come for a ride and experience the whole creation of it, right? Which I think adds another layer to the experience of the artwork. Like, how is it coming to life? You're a part of that too. And so I think AI can't really replace that. It also can't make a physical painting on a wall where you can feel the texture on it. That's had me thinking maybe I should make pieces that have so much texture and qualities that are so organic that people can come up and actually touch it, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And to just gently feel that piece, because online on your phone screens, on your computer screens, it's going to be flat, it's going to be digital, even though the piece isn't digital. But AI probably won't be able to do that for a little while. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
And what's next for you personally? What's next for Mad Charcoal? You have any new series coming out?
Yeah, so we're doing prints every month or over more than a month for only very limited days. So I think that's kind of driving up demand a bit, because it's going to be very, like, we used to just have everything available all the time, and that's no longer the case. Like, and people are kind of a little sad about that sometimes, but I think that that's important because I can only produce so much and the demand is up. So it's important that people are seeking the work. If they want the work, they have to actually wait for the right time to purchase it or something along those lines, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just a candy store you can go grab some and then leave like it used to be, sadly. I think that's fun too. But just got into a new gallery in New York called the Kraus Gallery. Visited that the last couple weeks ago, and that was really cool. Experiencing New York and Manhattan, very inspiring place, very chaotic and very claustrophobic though. So I don't think I'd ever live there, but it's so cool to be there, and it's so inspiring to see other artists, to talk to other artists and other galleries, and I think Kraus and his gallery are fantastic. He's a fantastic guy, fantastic artist, really cool selection of work. Obviously, I have my Scottsdale, Arizona gallery called the Marshall Gallery. That's where I'm at currently with the bigger pieces. And that's a really cool gallery as well, really big place and very nice people there too. So you can see my work in person at those two galleries currently. We're looking at San Francisco, LA next. Hopefully we're going to have a presence there. That's a lot closer for me than New York. So I might be able to be there in person more often than I would be across the entire country. But yeah.
And where can we see your work online?
Online, I have a website. It's called madcharcoalshop.com. That's where I sell most of my work, except for the work that's at the gallery specifically. That you can actually reach through madcharcoalart.com. Kind of talks about, it has like my bio in it. It has like my portfolio works, like the drawing portfolio, painting portfolio, maybe some news of upcoming things. There's like, you could join the newsletter if you want to see what's coming out. And because sometimes pieces come out, people buy them, and other people are mad that they didn't get to buy them because they didn't see it for very long. And so if you want to be up to date, newsletter, Mad Charcoal newsletter, stuff like that.
And check out the website to be up to date on when you could get a print, get your hands on them. They're super awesome. They're gorgeous. You're also on Instagram.
Yeah.
You're on TikTok. You can go see Josh work on his stuff. You can see Mad Charcoal working on its beauty. It's gorgeous. It's fun.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for joining me and piquing my interest. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Thanks for having me on this, Scoob. It's so cool that you come into town and in your own creative field and really thriving in that, which is so cool to see. It's inspiring to me, and especially you reaching out and letting me be a part of this and chatting with you and learning about you too. It's been really cool.
No, it means the world that you joined me.
Yeah,
thank you.
Of course.
And I always end with one last question. If you could excel at any craft other than your own, what would you want to do?
I love sculpture.
Ooh.
Sculpture, 3D stuff. That's so cool, but I dabbled in it once, and that was scary. But I like eventually, like if I have some time on my hands, I'm gonna go that direction. I think.
You think you could ever incorporate charcoal into sculpture?
I think so. I think I'd find a way. Some like maybe carving out some burnt wood or something like that. Maybe. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I really want to dabble in that first. So that's for my own, I guess, craft to learn, right? But other things that I'm interested in, like I like movies, I like music a lot. I play some instruments. Like I play at the worship team at my church. I play electric guitar there, and so there's a lot of like pretty much anything creative. Like I'm super excited if I get to go see like your play. That's gonna be awesome.
I hope you do.
Yeah, that's gonna be so cool. That's inspiring to me, right? Especially to see the things that people are they hone in on their craft and things that I will never be able to like even come close to see like to doing in that way. It's so cool to experience that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I can't thank you enough. And thank you to all my peakers out there. Please let me know if you know of any special or unique artists or art forms you think I should explore. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, and can't wait to see where Pique My Interest takes me next. Remember, creativity comes from the heart. Push yourself. Be kind to each other. I'm Scoob Decker, and thank you for helping me pique my interest.
Peakers. That's awesome. I like that. They're peakers.